What's up, you guys, and welcome to another episode of the Ask Alex Show. I told you guys I would be doing this show live, and normally I would have all of my co-hosts here, but unfortunately, Ian could not be with us. But today, I have no other than Jeremy Branch with us here on Momentum Media's Ask Alex. How are you doing today, Jeremy?
I am glad to be back. It's been a little bit. I love that we're doing the show live now, and I am pretty jealous of Ian, who's been on vacation for the last I don't know, it feels like a while now, but he's been to all these great different spots. He posted a picture with Toddy at the Hollywood sign and like pretty close to the Hollywood sign. So I don't know how he got up there that close to it, but yeah, I wish I was on the West Coast, man. What else can I say?
Hey man, I saw some of those photos too. And I think he said today he's going to California. If he has the opportunity to go to Comic-Con, bro, go. This is the time to go. This is probably the first time in years that San Diego Comic-Con has not been packed due to the writer's strike and a whole bunch of other things, which we're definitely going to get into in today's show. We got a lot of things to tackle today. And again, I could not do the show without Jeremy because I'm glad to have the bounce my different opinions about these different things, and also love to hear his perspective. But real quick, guys, since there are going to be some different changes coming to Momentum Media in the near future, like I said, we are relaunching the brand. Like I said, Ask Alex is going to be live. If you saw my update video, Real Debates will be ending its season 3 next week, with the final episode will be between me and Ian. What is the best Will Smith movie? By the way, that episode was recorded way before the slap, but I put some slap stuff in there, so it's gonna be funny. I can't wait for you guys to see that episode. And if you want to support us, guys, it's easy. Just follow us on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube page. Also, let's get about at least 5 or 6 likes for this video, and also be a supporter on our Patreon page. Like, if you want to support us on Patreon, that would be much appreciated. And if you want your question on topic on this show, it's very simple, guys. Just send me an email at the Ask Alex Show at gmail.com. That's the Ask Alex Show at gmail.com. If you submit your topic or question here, more than likely it will be answered here on my show. Now, if you can't watch this show like on Spotify, or I mean, if you can't watch the show on YouTube and you say you're at work, you can listen to my show on Spotify. That's right, we are on Spotify. If you go to my Spotify page here on Spotify, I've tried to screen share, but it's not working properly. But
I'm
anyway,
looking at your picture folder.
yeah, if you try to if you see us on Spotify, we can if you go to Spotify, we're in the film and TV division. The Ask Alex Show is available for the audio version of that only. We're looking at my picture folder, and I tried to screen share, but that's okay. We're gonna stop this screen share and then we're gonna go back to my folder, and then we're gonna try this screen share one more time so you guys can see it. And window, boom, and there it is.
There it is.
We are available on Spotify right here, the Ask Alex Show. Again, this is something you don't want to miss. If you can watch us on YouTube or watch the playback on YouTube, you can definitely listen to us on Spotify, which we will currently continue to update. Now that we've gotten these announcements out the way, guys, let's go ahead and jump into the first topic of the day. And actually, I have a off the top on my notes here, and I wanted to run this by you, Jeremy. So you've noticed, like I've noticed, the DCU current films like The Flash and Shazam, Black Lightning, they have been underperforming a lot lately. And The Flash is actually a pretty decent movie. Shazam is okay for what it's worth. Black Adam, not so much. It's being said that Blue Beetle is probably going to make about what, 12 to 20 million dollars opening weekend. Now I'm looking at the projections from Box Office Pro, and it's saying it's going to make this that much money. I've always said from the beginning, I didn't think they should have made a Blue Beetle movie to begin with. However, I do like the main character who's playing Blue Beetle because I love Cobra Kai. And also, I know the character very well from the original origins, from the Ted Kord origins up to the current origins, what they're doing now. I want to ask you, do you think at this point, since all of their DCEU movies are underperforming, do you think they should just continue to put them out in theaters, or do you think they should just throw them up on HBO Max and then allow James Gunn to do a hard reboot once his movie Superman Legacy comes out?
I don't know, man. It's been a wild summer for box office in general. I personally thought that Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 was just going to come and mop the floor with every other movie that had come out this summer. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
end up being the case.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
We're kind of holding out hope for Oppenheimer and Barbie, aka Barbenheimer. But as far as the DC stuff goes, I don't know which would be more financially responsible of them. Like, if you make $1 million more putting the thing out in the movie theater than you do by putting it directly on streaming, that will
Mhm.
probably help you in the short term. I'm very curious to see. Well, I'm very curious to see a lot of things, but does James Gunn's name salvage DC? Do we all of a sudden get more excited for a new Superman because who's attached behind the scenes? Or does it just seem like a continuation of more of the same? We've got, as you said, Blue Beetle, we've got Aquaman, and when you see the trailers in particular for Aquaman, are you going to be like, oh, this is old DC, this is new DC? Does it even matter, or is the name itself tarnished? Long term, it might actually somehow benefit the studios to just wipe the slate clean, not put any more movies in the theater until the relaunch of the DCEU happens. But time will tell. I'm very unsure that this idea of a new creative vision behind the scenes is going to polish the tarnished reputation, the tarnished brand that is DC.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because the most recent trailer came out for Blue Beetle and I'm excited for it. I still stand by my original point though. I don't think it should have been. I don't think that this is a particular project you should greenlight at least for a major studio for a major theater release. And I know this movie had an over $100 million budget. Again, I think that was another mistake because of the fact that again, this was originally made for HBO Max, and then the upper lords of Warner Brothers decided to put it out in theaters. And with the Flash, which I contend is a pretty decent movie, I don't think it's a terrible movie. It did not do well, and now when I'm looking at Blue Beetle, which looks promising, people are not watching these DC movies. And like to your point, though, I saw Mission Impossible. We were talking about it off camera. Man, that movie is freaking phenomenal.
So good.
And it's not doing well. At least it didn't do well for the first weekend. We'll see by the end of this weekend, because it's the second weekend, to see how it would do. From what I understand, looking at Box Office Pro, it's saying that it's coming in about maybe $30 million its second weekend. But the final numbers have not updated because today is Saturday. So we'll see how the future DC goes. But that would be our off the top. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think about the DCEU essentially failing? Do you think that Blue Beetle has a chance of thriving in the box office? Jump into the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts. All right, now we're going to go ahead and jump into our questions. And like I said, if you want your topic or question on the show, very simple. Send me an email at theaskalexshow@gmail.com. And our first question / topic comes from a really good friend, a really good coworker of mine, Mr. Keith Beers. And he writes, "Hey, Alex, so I know you've been abreast of everything that's been going on in the writer's strike. According to Bob Iger, he's saying that right now to have a writer's strike is very inconvenient and their demands are very unrealistic. As I look at what actors make on a day-to-day compared to average workers, I would say that if I have the opportunity to be on TV and get other job opportunities, and also get paid off certain shows, I think that the actors are making much to do about nothing. Um, I think that actors should take what they're given and make sure that they continue to book more work or create their own content if they want better pay for themselves. What do you think about this strike? And also, do you think that Bob Iger has some very great comments about what he's saying from a studio level standpoint? Well, Thank you for your question, Keith. Let me just say this. I probably should not say your first and last name online anymore because although I enjoy your transparency and your question, a lot of people who probably have heard me read that question, I hope they don't find your social media. They're going to they're probably going to hurt you. But let me address your question because I do think it's a fair question. Um, First of all, let's just break down the writer strike and the actor strike. This hasn't happened over the last 60 plus years. So I'm only 30 years old. So obviously this didn't happen while I was alive. Jeremy's in his you're 42?
40.
40, you're 40. And Jeremy wasn't even alive at this time. And I would say, yes, I believe that actors and writers should fight for equal play. But Keith, let me just enlighten you about something in regards to actors, writers, and even directors, especially writers and actors. Just because you see actors on TV, they do not make a lot of money. And I can tell you, when I first started interviewing actors on my platform, and I'm talking about actors who've been in things here and there, not the major celebrities I've had on my platform, but even them too, they can tell you, and all of the people, and I want to point out, every person I've interviewed that's an actor on my show is SAG-AFTRA, meaning that in order for you to really get work in Hollywood to be on TV, you have to be a part of that guild in order for you to do even extra work to a certain extent. With that being said, as many commercials or as many TV roles or short films or even major feature films, not a lot of actors get paid a lot of money. Now I know you're probably thinking about the Denzel Washingtons and the Marvel Cinematic Universe actors. Let me just be honest with you. Even Chadwick Boseman, who played Black Panther, he didn't get paid. He got paid under $10 million to be the lead. Robert Downey Jr. got paid over $50 million to be in Avengers. Now, granted, yes, I would say that yes, Chadwick Boseman was not broke, but keep in mind there are not a lot of people that were in Chadwick Boseman's position. Like a lot of actors that I've interviewed on my platform who work average acting jobs, they don't get that much work in the 12-month period. And also, there's this thing called pilot season. And pilot season, there are hundreds of pilots that are shot, and only maybe 1% of them are picked up. And that's just the truth of the matter of it. Now, also keep in mind, if you are an average actor that's in New York, LA, even Atlanta, and even some parts of Florida, again, you may be making at minimum $200 a day. And if you live in any one of those cities, especially something somewhere like in Los Angeles, your minimum rent in a decent area is probably $2,000 a month. That's just your rent. So just because you see someone on TV doesn't necessarily mean that they are making buku money. There are writers who've written movies who've won Oscars and Emmys, and they have second jobs as bartenders. They don't get paid. Their residuals are not that great. I remember talking to an actor, one of the first actors I had on my show, Troy Skinner. He got a residuals check from what was it? How I Met Your Mother.
Hold up. How many cents was this residuals check?
I was about to say it was less than $1.
Yeah.
Less than $1. And it was like, I think he told me it was about 30 cents, something around there. The point I'm making is that when it comes down to just basic living and doing this, actors do not make a lot of money. There's a reason why. Okay. Jeremy's been to Los Angeles. I've been. Our good friend Ian is there now. I guarantee you there's some actors right now that if you go to a bar or a restaurant, or if you go to or if you even ask to request an Uber, most of those actors you see on TV are doing those jobs on the side. And it's not funny because it's like, okay, you would think that in a business that receives hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, you would be giving you would think that they'd be living lavish lives. And again, like I said, when you look at the MCU actors and these high quality actors, that's the 1% of 100% of people who work in acting. Now, with that being said, to address Bob Iger's comments, Listen, I understand as someone who owns a company, you have to manage the company, and I do believe you should be fairly compensated. However, Bob Iger makes millions of dollars in his sleep, like
Tens of
literally
millions of dollars every year
tens of
just
millions
off his salary.
just off his salary. And here's the thing, you know, people and some people are are agreeing with him because they don't think that actors should be paid residuals because other people who have everyday jobs or people who've worked on the sets don't get residuals. But here's my thing. I can understand that argument. However, when you are lending your craft, your voice to something, I think everyone should be paid for their work. Art is very unique. So, how Jeremy views art is very different in how I view it. But if I pay Jeremy to be a part of one of my projects and his art is being shown on my projects, rightfully so, if he wants a residual, he has to negotiate that with me on his contract and vice versa, right? So it is about what you negotiate in this business. However, if I get the opportunity to play Black Panther, I will never see the billions of dollars that it'll make. I only get maybe 1% of that. And that's not a lot in comparison to the people who build the sets, who write the scripts. I mean, there are people who write scripts from their apartments who live in the hood. And these have been Emmy nominated shows, Oscar winner movies. And these people have second jobs, and that's nothing against them. I'm just saying if I write a hard hitting show and it makes all these awards and I get maybe a check for $5,000, and then every check every quarter I get from that point on is like $10 or $5 or 5 cents. That's kind of messed up. And people are saying, well, you can't really count residuals when it comes to streaming because streaming is more so they don't get paid from the view. Well, I'll put it to you like this: if Disney's willing to lose $2 billion per quarter from creating Disney Plus, I think they have enough capital to lose more money to pay the actors what they are owed. Now, if no one's watching their show on their streaming service, that's one thing. But if our people are watching a consistent show, they should get paid for that and paid substantially for that. Jeremy, you heard these comments. You heard about this strike. Actors and writers are fighting about pay, a livable wage, AI, which I disagree with. No AI should be you should not be scanned, and people shouldn't use your voice or your body to be repeated over and over and over. What do you think about Bob Iger's comments? What do you think about the strike as a whole? And do you know anybody personally that you've had on the show that SAG after, or do you know anybody who's come to you and given you their opinions about this matter?
Oh boy, there's so many different aspects of this that need to be discussed.
Mm-hmm.
And I no, I don't know anybody that I've spoken with personally about it. But I have heard accounts from people. And so let me try to just hit on a couple of the finer points of it, maybe the broader points of it. And that is number one, if you've heard this actor's name, unless you are very immersed in the movie space, but if you're just the average moviegoer, you go see 3, maybe 5 movies a year, and you've heard their name, chances are pretty good they're getting paid a lot of money. When you look at Chadwick Boseman, RIP, when you look at Scarlett Johansson, when you look at Robert Downey Jr., Tom Cruise, these people are making tens of millions of dollars a project. They're going to be okay. And that's what I think a large part of the disconnect is when you think of actors, you think of the actors, you don't think of the third build in Orange is the New Black who has to fly themselves out to the award shows because the studio won't pay for their tickets to get there. You don't think about all of these people who are going to 50 auditions a month and maybe landing one job on CSI, right? When we think of actors, we think of the most successful. And to Alex's point, you're thinking of 1 out of 100 of those people that are trying to make a career out of this. Hollywood is incredibly unfair. It is foundationally built on lies, whether we're talking about storytelling, talking about acting, but I think most importantly, in terms of this conversation, we're talking about wacky fucking bookkeeping, where the entire name of the game is to take movies that make millions of dollars and make it look like they lost millions of dollars. That way they can screw people in the contracts. They can launder money. Ever since Hollywood has been a thing, it has been attached to dirty money. Investors that work for criminal enterprises that want to clean their money, they know investing in things like art is a great way to fudge books and clean money. The art industry of paintings all the way back to like medieval times has been a way to launder money. So like the entire industry is built on corruption. So this idea that like Bob Iger is symptomatic of a much larger problem. David Zaslav, symptom of a much larger problem. What is happening in Hollywood is a microcosm of what's happening everywhere in the world, whatever industry you're in. In Florida, minimum wage has been like $7.25 for 2 freaking decades now. If you look at the amount of like Taco Bell items that were 39 cents each at the beginning of that are now $1.49 each because of a thing called inflation. But shareholders, corporations, CEOs, they don't look at you as a person. They look at you as a commodity, a means to generate more profit. So I will never take the side of the people who are making $60 million a year over the people who are making $60,000 a year to pursue this thing that they're passionate about. And what we are learning is that the people at the top, they hate the people at the bottom. They despise you, whether you work at, Amazon, one of the wealthiest corporations in the world, where people are having to piss in bottles because they're not afforded the opportunity to have bathroom breaks, because those moments of improductivity cut into the bottom line so that people like Jeff Bezos can make hundreds of millions of dollars. I say that to say there are degrees of suffering, right? You look at Jeff Bezos, he's got more money than he will ever need. He could pay $10 million out of his salary and change the lives of those people making $30,000. He will never do that. You've got people like Tom Cruise. You've got people like Robert Downey Jr. World's smallest violin. Those people are doing all right. That's not who we're talking about. The lowest tier actors, and even to a larger degree, the lowest tiered writers, who are the lifeblood of this industry, the people that are responsible for all the magic you see on screen, they're undervalued, they're underappreciated, they're actively resented by the people who they are making trillions of dollars collectively, and it's upsetting. So look, if I was a CEO, maybe my perspective would be, everybody just needs to shut up and let me bring in my $1 billion or whatever. But as somebody who relates more with the people who are aspiring to do something, I have to just say, like, if we took $10 million from Bob Iger's bankroll and we put it back into the industry, maybe things would be dramatically different, but the people at the top are never going to give you their money. So maybe the writers and the actors are asking too much, because the people who should be the most empathetic to them fucking hate them. So I don't know what the path forward is. It looks very grim, because there are certain things that the studios have relented on. They've been willing to up the base salary. They're not willing to budge at all on the artificial intelligence. And as Alex said, regenerating background actors and using their likeness and using voices. And maybe I understand that, because the future is coming fast and they don't want to have to take that off the table. But man, that goes for every auto worker whose job has been replaced by a machine. It goes for every copywriter whose job has been replaced by automation. It goes for people that work as concierges at hotels who are being replaced by robots. what's happening in Hollywood is a visible and quantifiable microcosm of what's happening to all of us. And if you feel like they get special treatment and you never got special treatment, maybe it's time to start asking for what's fair for yourself. Maybe we should all be out there fucking picketing so that we can get minimum wage increased, so that people can just simply afford the most basic essentials. This is one of the richest countries in the world. Why are so many people fucking suffering? It's incredibly infuriating. And I don't know what the answer is, but morally and ethically, it's wrong. So that's kind of my take on it.
Hey, and you know what? I humbly agree with what you're saying. Because for me, you know, I had, just do some inside baseball was something I normally don't do on the show. I had some actors, two actors in particular, lined up to interview on my show, but because of the strike, they cannot promote anything. Now, mind you, they were allowed to go to Comic-Con and promote this very video game I was going to have them promote on my show. However, because of the strike, individual podcasting, like online podcasting and things of that nature, they were not, SAG could not approve them for that. Now, because they've already signed contracts at San Diego Comic-Con, they were allowed to do that. To Jeremy's point, I would have to say, he's right. When it comes to this country, we are in the richest country in the world. With that being said, if I make Avengers Endgame and that movie makes 2.9, let's say round it up to $3 billion, Robert Downey Jr. gets his 50 mil, and everybody in the main cast who had a speaking part gets no less than, let's say, $10 million. But how come the background actors only get $200 or $300? Or if you do this, the set designs, they may get their 100,000, but they're gonna get under 500,000, but they're not gonna get any residuals. And then once that movie makes its $3 billion, Bob Iger and Kevin Feige are gonna get at least anywhere from 200 to 300 million from that $2 billion. And my thing is that, again, I understand when it comes to, like, for instance, if I spend $200 million on my own money and I make $3 billion, then rightfully so, I can understand from a studio standpoint, that money I put together to create this, I deserve all of that income coming into me. However, if it wasn't for the actors that I cast, if it wasn't for the directors, the producers, the ADs, I need to take better care of them as a studio, as a leader. So instead of me paying myself $200 million per film, or however it works, let me give myself, which I live a very lavish life, let me give myself maybe about $10 million.
Or hey, $175 million. Take that 25 million and put it into the team. You ain't losing anything.
Exactly. How about I put this into more money and then actually give them more money into the residuals? And see, like Jeremy was alluding to, which he even said directly, the people at the top hate the people at the bottom. Think about it. Scarlett Johansson had to sue Disney.
It's wild.
She had to sue Disney because they were not going to pay her because they breached their agreement. Mm-hmm. And all because she's a woman. I mean, and here's the thing. Regardless of what you may think of the movie, she was still owed her money, because we both know, had that movie would have came out and there was no pandemic, Black Widow, as quiet as it's kept, would have almost made $1 billion. It probably would have made $1 billion, because there wasn't, like, Captain Marvel, one of the movies that came out, which wasn't all that great. It wasn't a trash movie, but that movie made $1 billion. And I keep asking myself, how? So if that movie would have made $1 billion, I'm thinking that maybe Black Widow would have made $1 billion. But when I look at these other actors and other designers and writers, if they're getting critically acclaims and these different awards and all this other stuff, that's great. But there should be a monetary value to it. Which goes into my latter point. I mean, I'm not a SAG actor. It is something I would want to do at some point in my life, but that is the reason why I'm creating my own content now. So that way, whatever money and budgets that I want to set for myself, I can set for myself and then take care of the people who help make that vision possible. So for me personally, this is all a learning thing. And I think as humans, if we know we're creating fine art, we should definitely take care of the people, not just the 1% actors, everybody that's involved. Because I don't know if you heard this, but you know that lady who designed the Black Panther costumes, she won 2 Oscars for both movies. That woman has not received a residual, and she won 2 Oscars from either of those movies. Now she was probably she did her job, she got paid. Great. But both of those, the first movie made over $1 billion, the second movie made over $800 million. She has not received any back pay from any of those movies, but Oscars. 2 material things that really don't mean shit, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice to have the accolades, and maybe they will help you secure future jobs, but it's
Right.
not enough. And it's the same with the characters from Orange is the New Black. And one thing that I didn't even have a chance to touch on because there's so much, but is that until streaming services are willing to forego the wonky bookkeeping and actually release the analytics for what these very successful shows are doing, the hope for ever getting any sort of residuals is completely out the window. And that is also just like, it shows that Hollywood bookkeeping is very exclusionary. It's not about being transparent. It's about keeping the numbers close to your chest to protect yourself, to protect the investors. And it really is, it's a different landscape, right? Like, talk about CSI, right? Like, you would know how much Tide was paying from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. to run an advertisement on that spot. There's a quantifiable value for it. Well, now that advertising is not quite as dominant in what the value of residuals are worth, you got to figure out a way to reconcile that, right? So increasing the actor's baseline salary and the writer's baseline salary would be a great way of doing that. To the question, if the actors are asking the studios to pay residuals, but we don't even know how to quantify what residuals are worth, they might be asking for too much in that particular conversation. But that's why there has to be a sit down powwow, reconciliations. People have to make concessions on both sides. It's about compromise moving forward. But when you're holding all of the cards, you don't have to negotiate. And that's what sucks, because I think a lot of people who are working 9-to-5 jobs or washing dishes or driving Uber, and nothing but respect to those people, but they're like, I don't get to live my dreams. I got to go out here and fucking work just to survive. Why shouldn't you? But is that what we're telling people as a society, is that you don't deserve to be able to pursue what makes you happy? That's really bleak and dystopian. So maybe you're not happy with where you're at. You can either say then nobody should be, or you can work on yourself and try to find a way to make yourself happy. And then everybody could be happy instead of everybody being fucking miserable. Wouldn't that be great?
It'd be great. That would be great. But unfortunately, we live in a capitalistic world. And unfortunately, and I heard someone say this on a podcast, Hollywood is ran by essentially executives who have essentially little to no creative background. To an extent, that's actually kind of true. And with that being said, I think artists will always be the most undervalued people when it comes to showcasing the art. Because let me be very clear, like when you are a work for hire for like say for a company like Marvel, like if I created the character Black Panther, I would get paid for that day, but Marvel will make billions of dollars off that character that I created
because you created it on their clock.
on their
So
clock.
you don't, yeah, it's awful, man. It's
Yeah, and
awful.
you don't get a cent of that. And just think about that. So when you sign up for these things, you're a work for hire for people who will own your shit for the
Yep.
rest of your life or their lives.
Yep.
So, but what do you guys think about this actor and writer strike? I would love for any actor or a writer who's seen this episode to just jump into the comment section below, give us more context of what's going on. And yeah, and if you want to be a part of the show to talk about the particular strike, you guys can send me an email as well. Jeremy, did you have anything else to add to it, or?
I'm just glad that we were here to solve the entire issue, and hope y'all appreciate all of the fantastic advice that we've given.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Now let's go ahead and jump into our next question, and our next question comes from Miss Iris People.
Heyo!
What up, Iris? Miss Iris writes, "Hey guys, so I am super excited for James Gunn's new DCU. In particular, I am super excited for Superman Legacy because they add multiple heroes in this movie, from Hawkgirl, Mr. Terrific, and Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner's
Nice.
Green Lantern. I am super excited for this film. This tells me that superheroes will automatically exist in this DCEU. What do you think about the lineup for this film? And do you think this is a great way to start this movie?" Well, thank you for your question, Iris. Side note, by the way, we've been trying to get Nathan Fillion to play Green Lantern since I was like 10.
Just something. Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
like, because Nathan Fillion, I think there was a if I remember correctly, there were fan made trailers of Nathan Fillion as a Hal Jordan. And now that he's actually in this movie as Guy Gardner, that's going to be funny. And I love watching him on the show he does called The Rookie. It's a really good cop show. But to answer your question, what do I think this is a good start for Superman Legacy? I think this is a great start for like a pre-Justice League movie. I think this is a great start only because we are now acknowledging that there are other characters in James Gunn's DCU, and once they finally do the Justice League or DC's Justice League, we will already have an introduction of these characters to some capacity. My only criticism, I would say, do not oversaturate this movie with DC characters where we kind of miss the main point of why Superman's doing what he needs to do in this movie. I want there to be a really good balance, like kind of like the Flash. The Flash, we got Wonder Woman, we got Batman, we got Michael Keaton's Batman, we got George Clooney's Batman, and we got all these different things, but it was a good balance of it. So if they were to create that same balance or even better balance with these particular characters and how they conflict with one another, I think this is going to be a great movie. Jeremy, you heard the addition of these new characters. Are you excited about these characters, and do you think that this will be a great starting point for James Gunn's DCEU?
You know, when we first started doing this, and I think I can speak for both of us, but certainly myself, John Campea was always very adamant that you need one fantastical element to suspend your disbelief. With the original Iron Man, you have to believe that a person can create this suit of armor and become a hero. As we've gotten further and further along into the realm of comic book fantasy, that logic has kind of been discarded in favor of doing something that's more true to the comic books. When I think of Batman, I think Batman works best alone. I've kind of always felt the same thing about Superman. And the thing that's always been, I think, kind of essential to Superman is that all of his strength, all of his powers, and his skill set has to be so delicately used because he could destroy the world. So it's not brute strength that could ever compete with Superman. It's only the intellect of someone like Lex Luthor. So you can't really have a guy that Superman can start punching with without kind of diminishing the power of Superman. I say that to say it's that conflict that I think would be the most interesting to explore with Superman, but James Gunn is setting up a cinematic universe. And James Gunn has proven that he can take not only a lot of characters and create a compelling narrative, he can take a lot of the weirdest D and F tier characters and make something really compelling out of them. The Suicide Squad is, I think, my favorite of the DCEU movies.
Mhm.
It's no Nolan Batman, but as far as those movies go, it's really fun. It's effective. It does what it does, and it does it well. I look at Superman as being this very like earnest character, and we see in
Mhm.
Guardians of the Galaxy that Gunn can do emotions well. I also see Superman as being this godlike being among mortals, but in a cinematic universe, he's a godlike being among other godlike beings. You put Batman in the mix, and then Batman's just a regular dude among all of these godlike beings. And it kind of like, it's hard to give the gravity to each of these characters that you will get out of like Christopher Reeves, just Superman, or even later, you know, Man of Steel by Zack Snyder. So on one hand, I like the fact that they're not just doing what Marvel did. They're not just starting with Superman as this one fantastical element and then kind of building from there. That'll really expedite the process and separate what DC is doing from what Marvel did. But already in the DCEU, we already see all of this stuff with the Justice League. And in the Flash movie, you've got all of the Justice League, and you've got Black Adam and Shazam. And it's so like, it's going to be difficult to set things apart in the minds of the consumers. I love James Gunn. I don't want Marvel and DC to feel exactly the same. And I hope that's not what we get moving forward, because while Guardians, the first one, is dramatically different from the Suicide Squad, Guardians 3, it ain't so different from the Suicide Squad. He's become more and more James Gunn, and that unification of the two houses might create even more superhero fatigue than what we're already looking at. But if there's a man for the job, it's James Gunn. I think he's fantastic. I'm excited about this movie, and I'm excited about the slate. I love the casting of Nathan Fillion, so we'll just have to see what goes. But I'm cautiously optimistic while also having a fair bit of skepticism, you know?
Oh yeah. Trust me, bro. I feel that. Yeah, I have a little bit of skepticism, but like you said, if anyone can pull it off, it's James Gunn. Guardians 1, 2, and 3. His Suicide Squad movie, phenomenal movies. Even if something is Slither, he can do it. Again, I think if James Gunn focused on the core elements of this movie and to really setting up their DCU, I think this will be a perfect way to launch what he's trying to envision. And I think this will helpfully reignite the fatigue, if you will, to the DC characters, because on paper, in my humble opinion, on comic book paper, DC has the more complex characters in comparison to Marvel. Not to say that Marvel does not. I'm just saying, like, there's a reason why people love Batman. There's a reason why people love Superman. They love the Green Lantern. They love the Hawkeyes, or not Hawkeyes, but the Hawkmans and the Hawkwomans and things of that nature. I mean, some of these characters were used in the Arrowverse, in my opinion, improperly. So I hope that they will revitalize these characters in this particular movie. But what do you guys think? What do you guys think about James Gunn adding Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific to Superman Legacy? Jump into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Now, we got one more topic for today's show, but before we go into that topic, let's hear a word from our sponsors, Blurred Creations. I want to take this moment and thank our sponsors, Blurred Creations. Blurred Creations is an independent Black-owned anime apparel company that produces high-quality apparel on their website. If you go to Blur Creations, you get things from shirts to accessories to all different types of apparel of your favorite anime characters. And guess what, guys? We're running a special on this particular website. If you type in the promo code MOMENTUM, you get 15% off each purchase of any item on the website. So if you are a supporter of mine and you want to support this independent black company, go to their website at Blur Creations, type in the word momentum, and you get 15% off each purchase on their website. I want to thank you guys again for supporting our sponsors, and also, guys, be a sponsor and a subscriber of our YouTube channel, Momentum Media. And that will be our sponsors, Blur Creations. A lot of dope anime apparel. Again, type in that word momentum, get 20% off each purchase of their items. And again, they have great apparel, great knickknacks, great things you want to take to stuff like Comic-Con or just wear on an everyday basis. So you definitely want to try out Blur Creations. If once you support our sponsors, you definitely support us here at Momentum Media. Now that we've got that out the way, let's go ahead and jump into our last topic of the day. And our last topic comes from a Mr. Danny. I think your last name is Bryce or Bernice. I'm gonna say Bryce. If I'm mispronouncing your last name, I do apologize.
Just call him a scumbag in the comments section. Let him know.
Definitely not doing that. But Mr. Danny writes, "Hey guys, so after watching the box office for multiple movies, I have to ask the question, are movie budgets too big?"
Yes, thank you. Next question.
I mean, when you look at Fast X was $350 million, and we got that beautiful part one movie. Let me stop joking, you guys. It was a good part one movie, but did it really need to be $350 million? When I look at the MCU as a whole, majority of their Avenger-like movies or solo movies are anywhere from $200 million and above. Should these movies get these elaborate budgets, or should they do something as simple as Deadpool 1, where their overall budget was $52 million? Let me know what you guys think. Thank you guys for taking my question. Well, thank you for your question, Danny. I've been saying this for the last couple months now, just in random friend groups that I've been talking. We just talked about the DC. We just talked about Superman Legacy. If I'm James Gunn or if I'm any movie studio, to be honest, I don't think Superman Legacy needs to be $100 million. Personally, I think you can pull off a good DC movie for anything under $100 million. I think you can pull off a good DC movie for about $75 million. Now, let me just put it to you like this. If you look at the operation of Deadpool 1, most of Deadpool 1's marketing was done by Ryan Reynolds and his power of social media. That is the reason why it made a lot of money like it did. Now, when you watch the movie, you can tell that it is a very secluded, low-budget movie, but it works because it works for that particular character. Now, the only part I disagree with you is that if you are making an Avengers movie, I do believe it should be about 200, maybe 250, depending on the type of story that you're telling. But to make Ant-Man Quantumania for about $200 million, I don't see why they couldn't have made that movie for $100 million or less.
It would have been better if it wasn't in the quantum realm, and then it would have been a whole lot cheaper.
Exactly. I mean, when I look at Ant-Man 1, I know Ant-Man 1's budget was nowhere near Ant-Man 3's budget. And Ant-Man 1 is a really good movie. And I know when you're adding stakes, there's going to be different levels to it. Contracts go up, and you have to pay your act. This goes into actors, producers, directors, and their pay raise and sets being designed. But listen, when I look at something like, the Batman, that character, a guy who has no superpowers, you can tell the Batman movie for, I believe, $50 million. You just use practical effects and you use stunt doubles and you tell a really good story. Now, I know the Batman was not $50 million, but I don't see why they couldn't have used that much money. Because again, Deadpool did a good job utilizing those budgets. And here's something I'm going to say, something that most studios and creative people may find offensive, or they may agree to. But I think when you have a low budget, it forces you to be creative.
Yep.
It forces you to be creative. And I'm sorry, some of these movies that have come out, like even the stuff on Netflix, that movie, The Gray Man. Why was that movie over $200 million for
Idiots.
a streaming movie? That movie didn't even come out in theater. It was a streaming movie, and I guarantee majority of that budget went to its cast. Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, like I know they did that movie no less than maybe $30 to $40 million a piece. And obviously, we're in the debate now about residuals. I doubt they got any residuals from that movie. But I mean, they made that movie strictly for streaming. Same thing with something like The Mandalorian. I know that's not a movie, but it's a TV series. The budget of that was like $150 million for 8 episodes. If that's the case, you should have just made a Mandalorian movie for less. That's how I feel. I'm just saying, when it comes to money, and this is the reason why there should be equal balance when it comes to studios creating projects. You should have the right creative people who know how to tell a story with a budget, regardless of how much it is. And you should have really good business people giving you an amount of money that doesn't break the bank. That is the reason why a lot of studios are being bought up by other studios. There's a reason why there's a lot of smaller, like for instance, I love what A24 is doing because they know the type of budget that they need.
Yes.
Plus the creative people to go behind that budget. So if they're going to get a high-end actor, they're going to negotiate with the actor and say, hey, I can't pay you $50 million, but I'll give you $10 million. Plus I'll give you residuals 10% of the dollar of how much this movie makes. That's a better deal for an actor than getting paid $50 million up front. And I'm just throwing out numbers. I'm just saying, when it comes to smaller studios, like I love what A24, Blumhouse, and even something as small as MGM that just got bought up by Amazon, they know how to work their budgets with particular films. That being said, to answer your question, like Jeremy said, yes, studios are spending way too much money when it comes to animation, when it comes to set designs, when it comes to casting, when it comes to these different things. The reason why, and I'm gonna get off my soapbox and pass it to Jeremy, but the reason why Tyler Perry's been able to thrive in his projects is because he's using his own money, his own studio, and he's shooting his movies very low. And everything that he does at his studio, he owns. So most, like Disney, they go to a third party to rent cameras. When you would think that Disney owns high-end cameras, they don't. I mean, I'm sure they do, but they still go to a third party to get the best cameras. They did that with Avatar 2, and they've done that with Marvel movies. So I'm just saying, like, when you are doing different films, it's easier to have your own equipment, your own things. That way you can cut your budgets very low, and then also negotiate with your actors and producers and set designers of how much you can have them build these types of things to put out a great product. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to get better quality from $30 million movies. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that if you are forcing people to be creative with a low budget, anything is possible. And Deadpool is a good example of that. I think the first Blade is a good example of that. And I think other films that have come out that are not even comic book related are good examples. Like that movie with Michael B. Jordan, where he's using like the Force to, I forget what it was called. It was a movie by Josh Trank.
Yeah. The superhero one with the found footage.
Yeah, it was like a found footage film. You know, that film was less than, I think, like $10 million or something like that.
Wild.
You know, and that movie is freaking amazing. I'm just saying, like, you can create quality films by forcing your creative people to be creative. Jeremy, you're a creative person. You've made music. You've helped out on films. You create your own content. Do you think that budgets are way too high? And do you think that if they don't stop with the over gouging in budgets, that Hollywood will eventually go out of business.
Um, so you want to make every movie an event, a reason to go to the theaters. If you can watch it on streaming, a lot of times you'll choose to watch it on streaming. You listed a bunch of really good examples. But I would challenge that an experience doesn't have to mean a city gets destroyed at the end. You look at movies like Transformers, and they're almost like numbing. Like, how many audience members look at that and are like, wow, I really appreciate the amount of money on display in front of me over
Right.
just valuing a good story. We went on these huge diatribes about how people need to get paid more in Hollywood. And then in the next segment, a couple segments later, we're talking about how studios are spending too much money on movies. And both of these things can be true at the same time. You can spend money in the right ways instead of spending it on frivolous razzmatazz that I promise people don't care about as much as the studios seem to think they do. So here's a divisive film, Sound of Freedom. I hadn't seen it, don't know really much about it other than it's become like a big culture war thing. I do know that it cost $14.5 million to create, and this weekend it crossed the $100 million mark as of 2 days ago. So how much profit is that when you look at the percentages of it? Holy shit. Where you look at a movie like Quantumania that costs, what'd you say, $200 million to make, all of a sudden the bar that you have to cross to even turn a profit becomes insane. These studios are betting the house every single time they make a movie, and it's ridiculous. It's like, why are you doing that? I don't understand. Every movie doesn't have to be in game. Only now, maybe every movie does have to be in game. But when you look at the flip side of that, Paranormal Activity, $15,000 budget. Steven Spielberg put $1 million into the marketing campaign, and it was just reaction shots of the audience watching the movie. And that movie became a cultural phenomenon. It is one of the most successful independent films of all time. It cost less to make and made more money than the Blair Witch Project. That is just shows that, to your point, necessity is the mother of invention. If you're in a situation where you have to do something that is resourceful and creative and outside the box, it's amazing what people can come up with. So you just look at a movie like Paranormal Activity. The theatrical experience doesn't have to be the explosions on screen. Sometimes it can be just as simple as a surveillance camera set up in a room. There's no ghosts visible in Paranormal Activity. There's not a shot of visual effects until the very, very end of one of the alternate endings of the movie. And that just goes to show audiences like a lot of different things. Why do you keep trying to fucking force feed us the exact same thing over and over again? Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. Second highest per theater average of that entire year. It made $36,000 per theater in its first weekend of 2022 of release. That is insane. Bodies, Bodies, Bodies isn't what you think of as a blockbuster, but when it cost $3 million to make, it doesn't take a whole lot of word of mouth and just positive feedback because the movie was good to double up, triple up, quadruple up, make 10 times the budget that the movie costs to make. And those seem like the winning propositions for the theater, not the, if we don't make $1 billion, we're fucked. It's like, why are you doing that to yourself? You don't got to do that to yourself. There's a movie coming out next weekend called Talk to Me. It's an A24 film, and I guarantee you it costs less than $4.5 million to make. I guarantee you it's going to break $20 million in its first weekend. It's going to make 4 times its budget in one weekend. And it doesn't have to be the #1 box office movie of the year to be one of the most profitable movies of the year. So y'all keep an eye on that. And that's my pushback to this idea that every movie has to cost $200 million, is that the ones that make the most are the ones that cost the least, you dumbasses. I don't understand why that's hard to track. Stop making. The reason why movie theater tickets are $15 each now is because of these crazy inflated budgets. So less VFX. Don't work a million VFX artists to death, 60 hours a week for a couple. Like, hire the ones you need, pay them well, get a couple of good actors who are willing to work because they believe in the project, not because it's a billion-dollar industry. Like, how many people will kill to be in a Wes Anderson movie? You know, they're not making money for being in a Wes Anderson movie. Quentin Tarantino to a lesser degree, because his movies do pretty well, but there's some filmmakers, Woody Allen, that people just want to work with, and they will take smaller checks just to be a part of this thing that is artistic and that they believe in. But movies have turned into commerce and capitalism at its peak. And don't get me wrong, there's always been an element of that, but when you see the amount of money these movies are making, you're going to demand more. So yeah, I feel like movies can be diverse. Movies can be a lot of different things. They don't all have to follow the exact same formula to be successful and to capture the zeitgeist. So I'd like to see more of that, please.
Yeah. And I 100% agree. You know, I don't think that, again, when you are making a film or even like, for instance, there are TV series that are great that work on less and they are able to put out great product. You know, and you know, just because you have a lot more money in something, you can use that for marketing. You can, like, for instance, social media for the most part is free.
That's a really good point.
If you have a good following, and the people who are involved in your project have a good following, you can literally mass market your film almost for pennies on the dollar.
Absolutely.
Without even buying ads. So my thing is, as a creator, as a filmmaker, as an actor, my thing is that, listen, you don't need to spend $100 million on a movie. My advice to James Gunn, as he's creating his DCU, if you're going to spend $100 million, over $100 million, let it be for movies that you know have a good buildup. The reason why the Marvel Cinematic Universe, at least for the first 3 phases, was successful is because they gave us good movies building up to a good point where Avengers, and then Age of Ultron, then Infinity War, and then Endgame. Like, when we got Endgame, that was a culmination of so many great films with multiple different budgets. And I think that's where big budgets justify the means. But when I look at A24, especially what they did with Everything All at Once, I don't need them to have an Avatar budget to do a movie like that. And that movie was really good. Versus, like, even with something like Across the Spider-Verse was over $100 million. All of that is animation, and that movie made its money back. Now, if you spend $200 million on Across the Spider-Verse on an animated film, you're a fucking idiot. I'm sorry that you're an idiot for doing that, spending that kind of money on an animated film when it doesn't cost that much to make an animated film. I mean, so me personally, to Jeremy's point, I think with certain films, they don't need to be Avengers Endgame to be great. And anybody, just bare mathematics. You know, you don't really need to learn this in business class, but if you spend $10 on something and make $1,000, I mean, you just profit $990.
Terrifier 2 came out in 2022, right at the end of the year. It cost $250,000 to make. It made $15 million at the box office. How many percentages? You know what I mean? That's an insane increase in profits. And to your point about viral marketing, they screened it at a festival, and they said like people were passing out or people were vomiting in the theater, and just that caught wind on social media, and it did the marketing for itself. So if you can turn, to your point, if you can turn $250,000 into $16 million, that's way better than turning $200 million into $300 million.
Exactly. So I think some of these studios, I think now in this time during this strike where all production is now essentially done until they come to the table with a deal. I think they need to reevaluate their budgets, and I think Bob Iger, for a lot of firings that he has done, especially. I live in Orlando. There are a lot of people who got fired from Disney. There are a lot of people who got fired from the ESPN Center here, and also like just multiple divisions across the board. They definitely need to do some restructuring. Same thing with Warner Brothers, same thing with Paramount, same thing with Universal. But I would encourage them to say, if you're going to make an interesting live action film of any kind based off whatever, you don't have reevaluate your budget. And if you're going to have I don't know, if you're going to have Leonardo DiCaprio in your movie, you can negotiate with him of what his cap is. Now, if he's not going to take anything less than $50 million, then get a different actor.
Yep.
I'm just saying.
Get a Leonardo DiCaprio type.
Exactly. Get a different actor who has maybe a better quality of acting than he does. You just never know. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that movie studios spend too much money? Jump into the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Ask Alex Show. Like I said, this show will continue to be live every Saturday from this point forward. I want to thank Jeremy for being on the show today. Where can we find you on YouTube and social media?
So as of yesterday, I launched Wrestling is Terrible on YouTube. All you got to do is search Wrestling is Terrible. You will find a brand new channel. It's got one video, 7 subscribers, about 30 views maybe by the time you get over there, probably closer to 25. And I've been having a really good time watching wrestling. Like, some people, they live it and they love it. And when I watch it, I'm the third part. I'm the laugh part. Like, I find it extremely entertaining in an ironic way, though I do have a lot of respect for the athletes. So you get myself kind of lightly poking fun at it. You get Tristan Glover, who is a diehard fan that's always been watching it. You get a little bit of both of our perspectives. We have fun conversations. So check that out. Also check out Lucid Memory. As if you don't have enough homework assignments already, check out Pop Culture Nihilist, Lucid Memory, or Wrestling is Terrible, or all three. Any of those things that are resonating with you. Lucid Memory is synthwave music. Pop Culture Nihilist is what you think it is. And then Wrestling is Terrible, also what you think it is. Check those out.
Yes, and also check out. By the way, shout out to Tristan. I have not collaborated with him in a good minute, but shout out to him. He's definitely will be back for season 4 of Real Debates, and also the new show that we're doing, which is Marvel Movie Trivia. But guys, the best way to support us here on Momentum Media is like, comment, and definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. We truly do appreciate it. And also, you guys, if you want to support us in a monetary way, the best way to do that is to follow to do that on our Patreon page. There's my Patreon page. We only have one tier. It's a $5 tier. It's essentially you get early access to every piece of content, especially the celebrity interviews and also the new content that's coming out. And like I said, we are making Momentum Media and turning it into a network of content, of original content. Jeremy and Ian are going to be a part of that, not just with the Ask Alex Show, but the different shows that I'm doing. And also we're going to have other content creators to be a part of that as well. So the best way to help support us, obviously subscribe or be a Patreon supporter. If you can't support us on Patreon for whatever reason, and if you can't donate every month, that is perfectly fine. But there's another way you can support us monetarily, because I've had people ask me. I did create this graphic here. You can support Momentum Media in these multiple waves right here. There's my Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, and Patreon. If you can't support every month, just a simple donation of any amount to any of these various things right here will help support us here on the YouTube channel. I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. And as always, you guys have a blessed day. End broadcast.